Hey, how you doing? Kat here. Let's talk psoas stretching. So the psoas is what holds everything together in our midsection here. Runs from the lower back, wraps around, comes all the way down into our femur. So yeah, that's the top of our leg here, that big bone in the leg. And the psoas, our fight or flight muscle, literally holding everything together in the midline, and it actually attaches our upper body to our legs, so responsible for moving us forward in life. So how do we stretch out this 16 odd inch muscle, the psoas, or psoas as it's actually known? So first of all, to stretch this out, I'm just going to step my right foot forward and bring my hands onto my quadricep here, so I'm not pressing into the kneecap. I'm going to make sure that this knee is slightly more than 90 degrees. I'm going to take an inhale, and as I exhale, I'm just going to lean into that stretch. So here I'm opening up through the hip flexor, so in this left hand side. So you should feel that stretch going into the left, and you're actually wanting to make sure that that leg is coming in or squeezing in towards the midline, not rolling in, but feeling as though the hips are square. You can take some inhale, exhale breaths here. Inhale, you can feel the ribs separating from the hips, and then as you exhale, a little bit of a deeper surrender. So this is stretch number one. If you want to go a little bit deeper into this particular stretch, and in yoga this is known as Anjaneyasana asana, or crescent lunge pose. So we're coming down here. You can lift that left hand all the way up to the sky, and as you gaze towards that top left hand, you'll feel that that will open up the stretch through the body, coming into that top section of the abdominal region there and giving you a little bit of an extra stretch. So you may even like to take that right hand up, grab hold of the left wrist, lifting up with the inhale, and then as you exhale, stretching over the top and just gazing to the right elbow. So you're still actually lifting up and out of the ribs and surrendering the hips down to the earth, finding that stretch going into the left hand side of the hip flexor or the psoas. So we're going to inhale, come back to center, and bring the hands down to the earth. So the next posture that I'm going to demonstrate on this side also stretches into the psoas. I'm just going to turn side on because it actually works into the quadricep as well. So stepping ever so slightly off my mat here, I'm going to come back into that crescent lunge pose or the Anjaneyasana, but what I am going to do is reach around and take hold of my left leg and still find myself lunging forward and taking an inhale and lifting the ribs away from the hips, and as I exhale, finding that surrender down, so moving the hips towards the earth. So also stretching into the psoas, but giving the quadricep a nice stretch through the front of the leg as well. So releasing out of that and bringing the legs back together. So another way we can stretch into the psoas, and I'm going to work the other side now. So I'm going to take my left leg out to the side. I'm going to try and keep my hips fairly neutral here, but engage my core a little bit. Drop this right hand down towards the earth, and it's almost like I'm taking a Ardha Chandrasana, but I'm a little bit closer to the floor, so a little bit of a variation here. As you take an inhale and reach that left hand up towards the sky, you can then actually take that over the head, gaze towards the elbow, gently pulling the elbow back to the ear, look all the way and scan up towards the wrist, the hand, and then the fingers. So eventually, as you're gazing towards the fingers, what happens is you're lifting the spine and lengthening through the back body, and you get that stretch that runs, and you'll feel it all the way here down into the femur. So you can see how this is actually working in the body as you engage in this particular stretch. Now really commit to the inhale and exhale here. So as you inhale, you find a little bit of length, and as you exhale, you can create some depth here in this stretch. So I'm just going to move my hand, coming back to this midsection or the hips, a gentle press forward with the hips. We're not tucking the pelvis, we're not doing anything too crazy, but just pressing forward with the hips is just going to give you a little more opening there through that side body. Sweeping that hand back down to the earth, bringing the knee back to meet the other one and coming all the way down to the earth. So that's 3 stretches right there for the psoas, giving it a little bit of a reprieve there. So there are other variations that we can take if we come into low lunge or crescent lunge, where we actually have the back heel lifted. Even our warrior 1 is going to give you a little bit of a stretch, and as you come up into your warrior 1 and you're going to take that stretch, lift the arms up, you can see here too that you've actually got that stretch happening all the way and wrapping here, because as that left leg is behind. So there's lots of good things happening as we work through some of those stretches. So round 3 is actually our supported bridge pose. So I'm going to come down onto the mat. I'm going to turn side on for this one. So we're going to come all the way down onto our back. And this Setu Bandhasana, our bridge pose, is actually a really lovely stretch for the psoas. So what we're going to do is we can feel the whole back body on the floor, neutral in the spine. Haven't engaged into the core or done anything crazy here. I've got the chin slightly tilted and that elongation through the cervical spine. Hands are down by the side of the body. I am going to bring my heels hip width apart and close up to the glutes. As I do this, I'm going to press my whole foot into the earth and lift up with the hips. From here, hands underneath the back body. You can squirrel the shoulders underneath and continue that lift. And you really want to press the feet into the earth here. So there's a couple of things that can happen. You can either really engage the glutes, or you can engage the quads and lift. If you're engaging the quads and lifting by pressing the feet into the earth, then you're giving the psoas a little bit of respite here. So to come out of that, we're just going to disengage the hands and roll down through the back body, lowering the vertebrae down to the earth one at a time. So going into the supported version, grab a block. I cannot rate this exercise highly enough. I love it. It's one of my personal favorites. At the end of a practice, before I go into Shavasana, it's something that I do religiously and I genuinely enjoy it. So press the feet into the earth, lift the hips, place the block underneath the sacrum. So that's, when you look at the pelvis, the pelvic girdle is kind of yay big. And so you want it to, you don't want to be down so that the tailbone's on the edge of the block, and you don't want it underneath the lower back so that the whole pelvis is off the back. You want it underneath the sacrum. So you should feel fairly stable in this space. The shoulders are connected to the earth, hands, palms facing up to the sky, and you can just stay here. I like to take a really deep breath, open the mouth, and sigh. What you'll notice when you do that, such a beautiful thing, is that sigh actually signals to the body that moment of reprieve. When you and you'll notice when you do this during your day, and you achieve something, or you get something done, or you make it to the bank on time, or you get an email out right on the deadline, or any of those sort of things, or you have a rush in the shop and you serve all these customers. And when you get almost when you've jumped that hurdle, when you get over that point, you're like, oh, and the body literally has a sigh of relief. And that process of taking that sigh or relief, we can actually recreate by taking a deep inhale, opening the mouth, and allowing that to occur. So meanwhile, we're just hanging out here in this supported bridge pose. So if you want to take this one step further, simply extending the legs out to the right and left side of the mat. So they're a little bit wider than hip width, and you can extend the heels down to the floor and kind of flex the feet. And when you do that, you want to take an inhale, open the mouth, exhale, and you don't want to keep the feet flexed. You actually want to feel that reprieve and that wash or wave of relaxation. So quite often I get asked, what am I supposed to feel in this posture? And my answer is not a whole lot. This is actually where we learn the art of surrender. And as human beings, we're not particularly good at that because we're taught, and our language around surrender is usually that we've lost, or that, you know, we haven't achieved the outcome that we've wanted to, and we've had to give in to something. So our connotations of what does surrender mean to us are particularly negative. So how do we get past that? Well, you know, I'm working with the inhale and the exhale breath. That inhale allows you to create space, so you take that inhale, and the exhale is that sigh and that surrender. And surrender is a beautiful onomatopoeic word that actually sounds like it's action. So as you feel the inhale creating the space, and the exhale allows you to surrender and get a little closer to Pachamama, Mother Earth. So you can stay here for as little or as long as you like in this beautiful supported bridge pose, and you can keep saying those words to yourself. Exhale and surrender. Particularly lovely to have that experience, and there's just that one mozzie. There's always just that one mozzie, isn't there? So finding that space, and it's almost like the opening to your meditation, where you're taking the inhale and the exhale and allowing yourself to physically surrender, allowing thoughts to drift away, and just be in the space. Eventually, you will start to feel that sensation of relaxation in the body, and it's particularly lovely. And eventually you can come out of that posture, bring the heels back towards the hips, press the feet into the floor, lift the hips and remove the block, surrender the hips down to the earth, turn the hands, palms up to the sky, and then take your Shavasana. We've talked about Shavasana in a previous episode, a previous tutorial. So, coming up, those are a couple of stretches for the psoas. So please, at any given time in the middle of your day, I've read documents and some research that says we should be stretching it out our psoas 2 or 3 times a day. So if you hop out into the lunchroom, or you might find yourself doing a couple of Anjaneyana asana in the break room or in your office or next to your car when you put the groceries away, and just give yourselves that moment of reprieve and allow the body to just have, or those psoas, your fight or flight muscle, to just have that moment of reprieve. Anyway, if you have any questions or you wanted to know anything else about the psoas, or perhaps some more advanced stretches, please drop me a message, and I'm more than happy to shoot you through some additional exercises for this beautiful muscle. Anyway, have a great evening. Namaste.